Good afternoon, everyone, and welcome to our workshop, where we will go for responsible AI from principles to practice. Today, we want to work with you to talk about a couple of AI use cases, and we'd also like to challenge you to go from principles to practice, to apply a responsible AI framework on a number of, let's call them, juicy AI use cases that we've already seen in the media, and that that are already more or less in daily life. But we like to pull them out of their daily context, hand them to you, and together think about, what the responsible AI implications are of applying artificial intelligence in this way. And there are a couple of flip overs in the room, and we'd like to ask you during certain points in our presentation, our workshop, to think about responsible AI and also write it down on the flip over. And after 5 or 10 minutes of let's say, table-based conversation, we would like to ask you to take a microphone also in 1 or 2 sentences, present to us, or to the group, I mean, how you think about responsible AI for these specific use cases. So my name is Bart Schoenmakers. I'm a senior manager data and AI strategy at Accenture. I have a background in medical technology, high tech, and healthcare. And responsible AI is part of what we do at Accenture. It's part of all the AI work that we do with our clients. And today I'd like to talk you through this. And with me here is Wiebe.
Hi all, my name is Wiebe Vossen. I'm a consultant, data scientist at Accenture. Or nowadays they call it ML engineer or analytics engineer. I'm the data guy, and here to help you with any technical questions you have on responsible AI.
Yeah. So, first question to all of you. Does anyone recognize this map? It's quite old. It's actually from 1834, 1835. And it was created by a guy named John Snow. Well, he was apparently not busy fighting White Walkers. He was creating maps. John Snow lived in London, and in London at the time there were cholera outbreaks. A lot of people died from cholera, and at that time the prevailing theory was that cholera was airborne, so it was a virus that traveled through air. But John Snow thought differently, and he wanted to prove that. So nowadays he's known as the father of epidemiology. I hope I pronounced that right. Practiced it a lot, still not fully working. But John Snow lived at he lived close to Broad Street, and John Snow noticed that a lot of the cholera infections actually centered around the same place. So he took a map and he dotted all the houses where cholera, where the people were infected with cholera, and where people were getting ill. And it turned out that it all focused more or less around the same place. This, and you can probably not read it because it's really small, but it says pump. So all the cholera infections occurred in people who were drinking from the same water pump. And that kind of proved at least to John, it proved that cholera was waterborne and not airborne. So he went to the government and he convinced them to, the lean genius that he was, remove the handle of the pump so that people couldn't drink from it anymore. And the outbreak subsided, and John saved a lot of people, and he actually became known as one of the founding fathers of epidemiology, even though the cholera outbreak was by then already subsiding. So maybe still, it's a great story. So John Snow realized that using statistics in medical fields could actually save a lot of people, and I think that today is still relevant, maybe more relevant than ever. Look at this fact. In 2022, in the United States, 700,000 people died from heart attack and stroke. It's the leading cause of death in the United States. heart attack or heart disease and strokes are largely preventable diseases by lifestyle or by medical interventions in a timely manner. So this seems to be a great opportunity for using artificial intelligence, especially since this disease costs the society about, what is it, 300, almost 400 billion a year in both healthcare costs and lost productivity. So, being the data and AI savvy guy and entrepreneurial guy that I am, I've got Wiebe here with me, who's a great data scientist, machine learning engineer. We saw an opportunity. And we thought, what if we could predict heart disease? So we are introducing today to you Heart Failure Early Warning Score, which is a great algorithm that will help predict upcoming heart failures by 3 weeks, maybe 4 weeks. And for this, we need a lot of data. We're going to process a lot of data, starting with the heart rate and the heart rate variability from ECGs. We're going to take body characteristics into account, so the BMI, for instance. We're going to look at various, at the genome. We need to know if your family, for instance, also has heart disease or not. We're going to look at a lot of different biomarkers, for instance, in the blood. We are going to look at your comorbidities. Because comorbidity is an additional disease that you have that may impact, for instance, heart failure risk. Did you know, for instance, that gingivitis, so tooth problems, actually have you at an increased risk of heart failure? Well, that's what we're going to take into account. We're going to look at fluid retention in your legs, because if you have, let's say, bad veins and you keep a lot of fluid in your legs. We're also going to look at voice characteristics, and you can actually Google this. This is true, that your tone of voice and certain voice characteristics can actually tell if you have something with your heart. You can actually Google that. So we're going to take this all into account. We are going to collect all of this data from our patients, and we are going to compare that with a huge third-party data set that we bought.
Sounds a bit scary, right?
It is a bit scary, but still it's going to save a lot of people. So we're going to bring this to the market. By the way, this is all. We're not really going to do this. This is for the sake of our presentation. But we are going to do this, pretend that we're going to do this, and we're going to save a lot of people. So we're first going to stop and think about what impact will this have in terms of responsible AI. Can we actually do that? What are the things we need to think about? Because this sounds nice and dandy, but there's a lot of implications on various responsible AI aspects. So now, we'd also like to challenge you to think about this for a number of other use cases, being the data savvy and AI savvy and entrepreneurial guys and girls that you all are. We've got a couple of use cases for you that are, let's say, interesting in the area of responsible AI. So starting with one in the growth, innovation, R&D space. So emotional sentiment analysis. Let's start off mild, right? We want to look, for instance, at ratings and reviews. We want to see, can we use this information, the sentiment that comes across in the communication of our customers to us, and can we use that for our R&D, for developing better products? That's one. Second use case, driver route analysis in supply chain. So look, for instance, at meal ordering services that bring your meal right to your door. We are going to see if you can analyze the drivers, the routes that they're taking, if they can be more efficient, and how can we make them more efficient. Third one, and now it's getting more juicy in that sense. Let's call it customer incentivization, or maybe better known as dark patterns. Dark pattern, you all know it from, for instance, these travel sites that say there's only one room left, book now, or 15 different people booked this in the last hour. You should book it as well. These are things that are trying to trick you into buying something that you might not want. Right? Then. Fourth use case, code optimization for workforce efficiency. Look at generative AI. Can we use that to make the workforce, let's say the coding workforce, more efficient? Let's say make them 25% more efficient. Then another one is very interesting, and I think a lot of this has went wrong. This has gone wrong a lot in the past. Is automated candidate screening. You've got a vacancy. You've got a lot of candidates. Can you automate that screening? Can you have AI find for you the best candidate for the role? And then lastly, fraud detection. And I'm sad to say that in the Netherlands, I think we are all quite familiar with fraud detection. In this case, by our own government. So these are the 6 use cases. And I'd like to ask you: can you think of choose one? That's for start. So choose one interesting one, and think about what ethical challenges you see with these use cases. And maybe just pick one per table. There will be a little bit of overlap. Just pick one per table, and write it down on the flip overs. You also markers. Put some books in some notebooks in on your tables. So just feel free to use that as well. So pick one, write it on the flip over, and afterwards we are going to ask everyone from a table, or at least, let's say, also looking at the time, ask a couple of people, just speak up and tell what use case you chose and what challenges you see. Right. So those were 5 minutes. really 5 minutes. Yeah. Right. So did everyone pick a use case and think of some ethical challenges they see? And is there someone who'd like to say maybe 2 or 3 sentences about their use case? Which one did they choose, and what problem do they see with it?
Yeah, Bart, I think we should give the floor to these guys at front.
I think...
Yeah, we're working in the name it says Codes for Whites.
Okay.
And they picked code optimization, so I guess they have something...
Can you guys here in the front, can you speak to which one you chose and what issues you see already?
Let me put you a bit on the spot.
If you're okay with it.
Okay. I thought I was going to be only the secretary here, but as a team, we chose the code optimization for workforce efficiency.
Yeah.
Because we think it's very interesting, or our table thinks. So the risks that we see from an ethical point of view are the IP rights. Probably we asked ChatGPT to generate code for us, or Copilot, that might be based on open source code with certain licenses or third-party code that is copyrighted.
Yeah.
The second one is privacy. If we use, let's say, some data from our client to describe the problem, we might be exposed some private information over there. The third one is propagating biases, because if the generated code or the generated solution may be based on pre-existing knowledge that just was biased from its own beginning. The other risk that we see is security and, in general, technical debt generation, because it's also the garbage in, garbage out. Depending on the prompt and depending on how good you ask the system, you will get an answer that might be flawed, and you might be propagating technical debt, but at scale, which is scary.
Yeah.
And the last is the knowledge base of your employees, which I think my colleague from this table can describe a little better than me. He's a lawyer, so...
No, what I refer to with knowledge base is the fact that if you start using code optimization, your team is relying more and more on using the AI, and probably a certain knowledge starts to denigrate.
Yeah.
So I think that's a future problem.
Yeah, good point. I think thanks for your input. I think these are really good points, and they also align quite well with the framework we're about to show you.
And how do you tackle these issues? Do you have a solution for that yet? Yeah. I think
yeah, I think for this code optimization, one want to think about also the social aspect of this, right? If you take away more work from people using artificial intelligence, a step from code optimization to code writing is actually quite small. How do you make sure that people actually keep relevant work? And is that something we need to stop? That's something more philosophical discussion, actually. But thanks a lot for this, for your inputs. Is there anyone? We've got time for one more. Does anyone else want to share which use case they picked and what challenges they see in terms of responsible AI? I think a gentleman in the back is writing something down. I think that means he might have one.
Martijn?
Or how about this? I see 2 times HR, so I think there might be some overlap.
Yeah? Yeah, go ahead. Yeah.
Okay. Yeah, I can spend my time on writing it down, but maybe with my handwriting you might not even be able to read it. So let's do it just in the oral way. Yeah, I think we had a vivid conversation over here on the topic. We picked the first one, emotional sentiment analysis. And you said, well, when you went to the right, the upper right, you said now it's becoming more juicy. But I think we already had a juicy conversation here in the good sense of the word. So we said, well, if you start building your new products and your company growth on emotional sentiment analysis, what if people are introvert? Well, maybe they don't get new products, maybe they're overlooked, maybe their opinion isn't calculated anymore, because emotional sentiment can also be purely based off what you express. Or if I put on a poker face, I will be overlooked. The other one is, for instance, if I'm behind my computer, it would be great if I look at a product and then I'm smiling and people think, okay, I should raise the price because this guy is smiling, so he likes my product. So then we say it's negative, but it also turned into a conversation like it really depends on the purpose. Because if you're looking for some medical solution and I'm a child and looking at a picture or I should relax or whatsoever, and then you scan that I'm smiling, then it's just for the good. And the third one, but we haven't finished that one, is more on the ethical side also, what happened with the, well, let's call it what happened with the government and our tax authority, and there really sentiment was involved. And you can imagine that if sentiment goes into the wrong direction and it just enforces the, well, you will respond more and more to that, then it's only with a bad situation, because it only makes it worse when you include sentiment over there. So that was our short conversation over here.
Yeah, thanks a lot also for showing different side of the coin. Very, very interesting. Thanks. Right. Yeah, thanks everyone for participating. Please do write down which use case you had if you haven't done so already, because we'll get back to it in a second. Don't forget it. It won't be on the screen anymore. So I think it's safe to say that responsible AI is part of almost every AI conversation nowadays. It's a good thing. It's also what we as Accenture, yeah, we think is really important to help our clients with this. And you read all about it in the media as well, right? You know, you've all seen the social network. So you know Facebook's bubble that shapes conservative, liberal bubbles. We know Google does it as well. We'll hope, let's say, cumulatively it cancels each other out. Yeah, we've already spoken when you also mentioned the childcare support scandal in the Netherlands, which is a great example of not having a proper responsible AI approach in your activities. Yeah, I think we've all seen a lot of news about things like algorithms being biased against certain races or certain, yeah, let's say,
Like face detection.
Exactly. Yeah, and now the AI Act is upon us, which is a good thing, but we do need to make sure that that it actually targets the right things. And there are, you know, originally it's about controlling or governing the creators and the companies that deliver AI solutions that might, and that it actually prohibits some types of AI use cases. But the question is, shouldn't it also target the users of these systems, like the Dutch government? But yeah, just to structure it a bit further. So we have, with Accenture, we have our responsible AI framework, and it exists of seven dimensions. And I'd like to go back to my to the heart failure early warning score. That sounds like a very, let's say, fantastic thing that we really need to implement as soon as possible. But we need to think a bit further on this. Starting with soundness. And soundness means that your algorithm actually measures what it's supposed to measure. That the quality is good, that it's reliable. And looking at our algorithm, we need to make sure that the outcomes it gives, because it's really about a life-threatening disease, we need to make sure that the outcomes of the algorithm is actually accurate. Otherwise, we're not going to save a lot of people, unfortunately. It also needs to be fair. And I think that this is something that, especially in medical data science and AI, this is a big problem, because a lot of the data that is used in medical science is actually from medical trials that are executed in Western Europe, which means that a lot of the data that's being used is actually from white-collar people. It's also biased towards male from Western Europe. So that means that any algorithm using this data is going to be biased towards this, let's say, these characteristics, and it will perform worse, for instance, for women, and that's not something we want to have, and we need to control that. Third, transparency. If you offer a medical algorithm to a doctor and you say, hey, look, this person is going to have a heart attack in 3 weeks, do something about it, and he's going to say, prove it. I don't see anything. I don't see anything that leads to this conclusion, except for your magic computer science thing that tells this person is probably going to die in 3 weeks.
I think this can be a challenge, right? Because if you have a model that's very accurate, but not transparent, but it actually predicts whether someone gets sick, then I believe as an ethicist you can say, well then let's just go for the model, because the model is trustworthy and it actually predicts it, instead of going for the transparent model.
Exactly. So,
because the transparent model might not be as good.
If your model is not explainable, it's not going to work in medical science, basically. Fourth, actually, accountability. Who's the owner of the decision that follows from your algorithm? So today, AI it's being used in medical science. It's not fully, let's say, part of daily practice yet. It's still special. However, let's fast forward to in 5 years, where the epics, like the EMRs of this world, have it fully integrated within their system. And a doctor sees a patient, and the algorithm will say this patient has disease X, and they give the doctor, she gives the patient a medication, and well, apparently the patient did not have this disease, and then he got medication, or he or she got medication that he didn't need, or maybe worse, right? It could be that a decision that clinical decision making makes for a patient actually causes harm. So who's responsible? Who's responsible for this decision? Is it the doctor? Is it the hospital? Is it the maker of the algorithm?
The model itself?
The model itself. So this is becoming more. This discussion is becoming actually more important every day.
Also, an interesting one with the automated driving. What decision do you make for the car at the moment when you have to hit either an old lady or a young person, and stopping is not a solution, or it's not an option? Do you let the developer, me, make that decision, or is that someone else that makes the decision?
Yeah. Then, fifth, privacy. So we said we are going to buy a huge data set somewhere in the United States, some company can offer us a huge data set gathered in different hospitals with all kinds of diagnoses and complications and things that patients encountered in the hospital. But who says that these patients ever approved me having this data? Well, obviously they didn't approve me having this data, but did they opt in? Did they opt out? So you cannot ask them because we're talking about millions of patients maybe in this data set. So, and then it's anonymized, right? It's de-identified, but what does the identification mean? It's also a very, let's say, broad concept, right? I always take the example, and it's a bit easy, I know, but I always take the example of this anonymized patient, and the guy is 90 years old maybe. He lives in Vatican City. His occupation is Pope. Is this anonymized? Right, so it's also a topic in itself, quite difficult. Then, robustness. Does my algorithm actually does it perform under different conditions? And very simple, my algorithm might perform quite well in a hospital in location A, but if you move 500 kilometers to the east, it might not work anymore. It's a different population. Lastly, sustainability. So I've heard stories that every GenAI prompt equals 1 plastic bag in the ocean. Right? I don't know if it's true, but what I do know is that I think last night on the Dutch broadcast, the NOS, they have had an article about how they expect that AI across the world in 4 years will consume as much energy as the entirety of the Netherlands. And this is only growing, and I think they didn't even take a lot of let's say, side notes into account. So it might even be bigger, and it's not slowing down anytime soon. And the emission from this is huge. You don't want to make that calculation, what the emission is. It is terrible.
Maybe one addition, Bart. So these are all very specific to the model, right? Whether the model is robust, whether it's fair. But how about the societal impact, right? If I have a model that predicts whether I get sick when I'm 35, do I actually want to know these kind of things? Or insurance companies, right?
Yeah. 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 Do you want to be analyzed in this way? Do you trust to be analyzed in this way? That also has a lot of social implications. That's a good point. So back to your use case. So we'd now like to ask you to go back to the use case that you chose, and you can also, if you want, you can still don't tell us, but you can go to another one if you find it more interesting. But look at these 7 dimensions, take your use case and think about which one of these dimensions is most relevant for your use case. So they're all relevant, but pick one that's, let's say, the biggest challenge. So we're going to give you 7 minutes, 8 minutes to think about it, and then again we're going to go around and ask you to 1 or 2 persons to present what they created.
So,
all right, we're back. We hope everyone had a good discussion and was able to write down some points using the framework. So is there anyone who'd like to tell us about the use case and how it maps on the framework, and what issues do you see using the framework? Maybe that group over there is still talking. Still, the discussion is so good. Sorry? Can you guys over there at the table in the middle, can you please tell us a little bit about what you discussed about using the framework, or about your use case?
you put them on the spot, Bart.
Yeah, I don't want to put you on the spot. If there's anyone else, also fine, but go ahead.
Yeah, thank you. Yeah, we discussed the fairness. We discussed also earlier about HR cases and especially the CV scoring algorithms, and we continue discussing those also in this case. For example, the risks of not noticing a bias from from the data where if it's easy to notice bias from like age and gender and that kind of data sets, but then when it comes to, for example, postal codes that might correlate with socioeconomic factors, it's more difficult to notice that there is this kind of socioeconomic bias through the postal code in the algorithm, for example. So yeah, just discuss that among the group. And what else did we discuss? Yeah, we kind of came to the conclusion that in the kind of problematic cases, like it's a combination of things to consider. So in order to make sure that there is no bias in the algorithm that is harmful, you need the transparency to the algorithm to kind of really see that that works. Also, the soundness, in a way, we discussed that you might go to kind of overcorrect the assumed bias, so that in the end you end up like being bad for like you think that it might like be bad for women or like certain minority, and then you end up being like biased towards white men or something like that, because you are more likely to see bias if it's what you expect it to be. So we discussed that one as well. Yeah.
Great, thanks for sharing. Is there anyone else who wants to share?
Here on the left.
Hi, thanks. I thought we should have a go because we're kind of on the same use case. A lot of our conversation at the beginning was about which one is the most important, and we spent a lot of time with lots of very good reasons why each one was important. And we realized that actually probably they're quite correlated with each other. It's kind of, if something is, let's say, fair, well, that also kind of manifests in the transparency. That also manifests in terms of the accountability and also kind of the societal effects. So it's really difficult to separate out one of those and say this is the most important. It just doesn't work like that. We echo quite a lot of what you said in terms of kind of major issues. We spent a little bit towards the end talking about the issues around how an algorithm, can it ever actually be fair? And actually, what should the baseline of being fair be? Because an algorithm might be biased, but it's less biased than the kind of hiring managers that might be present already. So is that a positive thing or is it a negative thing? It's positive, then it's better than this baseline, but now it's still not fair. How should we be kind of making decisions in that context? So yeah.
One more thing. You must mention good biases and bad biases.
You want?
We stumbled upon this. I don't know whether this exists academically or not, but we talked about good biases and bad biases. When a hiring manager, a person is hiring, he or she will have some biases. I mean, higher academic degrees, is that a bias? I don't know. Is that a good bias? I don't know. But we touched upon this topic as well. But that's all pretty much, right? Does anyone want to add?
Finally, we were wondering whether tools can be more intelligent than their owners.
Yeah.
In terms of bias.
Yeah, I think key here is to combine the model with the human, right? Not fully automated.
And which bias is better, the bias of a machine or bias of human? And at the end of the day, I think you can't avoid bias. So we have to be also cautious about that.
Yeah.
Point.
Yeah. Thanks. Right. So, a lot of good thoughts, and I think there's a lot of more good discussion ongoing on this table. And we hope that you will take that with you also back to your daily practice. The point on it being connected to each other, I think it's also connected to different areas of the organization. It's also what makes having an encompassing approach to responsible AI so difficult, right? It is a cross-functional topic. You need to have legal in, you need to have, the machine learning engineer itself, you need to have him or her in, you need to have sustainability in. And
ethicist.
You need to have ethicist, obviously, in. Yet we see that a lot of companies put the responsibility for responsible AI within the chief data office. And that is something that at least you need to think about quite well. Another thing is that the risk frameworks that are being implemented, there's no one size fits all. It's it's company dependent, it's use case dependent, it's region dependent, and you cannot make it easy for yourself in that sense. You cannot have one model and then never think about it again. Also, well, a lot of our clients feel that even though that they're doing a good job on responsible AI, their partners might not, and you are as weak as your weakest link in this sense. Culture is key. It's really a people business, responsible AI, but you need to make this explicit in your organization. You may need to make sure that the roles related to responsible AI are explicitly in your organogram to also embrace the topic in the daily work. And lastly, being data-driven, you want to measure, you want to improve, you want to create feedback loops. But what are the KPIs? What are the KPIs to measure this? And of course, you can plot that on the responsible AI framework, but these are non-traditional. And we find that our clients find it's difficult to define that, and we help them with that.
And don't forget, this depends, of course, on the industry, right? If you work in banking, it's heavily regulated. There's already all of these frameworks. If you work in retail, well, you're good to go. You can do whatever you want, more or less. But you don't want to be on the headline, right? You don't want to be on the newspaper.
You don't want to be a headline, that's true. It's a good quote. Looking at how I usually advise our clients is I take 4 pillars in responsible AI maturity. We start with principles and governance. So we start with defining, okay, what does responsible AI mean for you? How do you embed it in your strategic imperatives, into your mission and into your vision? And also figure out who does what. So who is responsible for what, and make that explicit, and make sure that people actually follow up on their responsibilities and their accountability in this topic. Then, knowing why you have it and how you have it embedded in your strategic imperatives, you also need to put the right risk frameworks, the right policies, the right controls in place to also start the right guidelines to start measuring and start controlling the risks and mitigating the risks that responsible AI poses to your products. Then make sure that responsible AI is embedded into your technology, into the tools that you're using, and also make sure that the people who are supposed to live responsible AI, that they have access to the right templates, guidelines, blueprints, or any other enabler that could help them in this task. And lastly, as I said, it's really a people business, in my opinion. Make sure that your culture lives responsible AI, and that you train the people, and that you make sure that that people find it just as important as their leaders. So walk the talk in that sense. Then we've got 7 more minutes, and we'd like to pose a question to you and have a little bit of a group discussion. So we'll go around with the microphone, anyone who wants to speak to this. But the question we want to pose here is it at all possible to strike this balance between AI-driven efficiency and responsible AI? What do you think? So, can you please hand the microphone? Yeah, thanks.
Good afternoon. Also, just to introduce myself, my name is Florian. I'm the Chief AI Officer for Avanade. And I feel rather strongly about this of, can you not do it? Because I think you cannot have efficient AI if it is not responsible. Responsibility is not unnecessary and sort of a bad tax to pay. It is a fantastic opportunity to enable AI to truly add business value, to differentiate yourself, to make sure that AI is not just used for productivity and efficiency and cost cutting, but it is used to truly empower people to become the best versions of themselves, to gain new skills, to realize their full potential, to solve some of humanity's biggest problems. So I think sometimes we're thinking around, can we be efficient or can we be responsible? I think in order to be responsible, you need to be efficient, and in order to be efficient, you need to be responsible. So I think this is an and question, not an or question.
Thank you. Thank you. Yeah, go ahead. Can you hand the microphone? Thanks.
I think that was really well said, so thank you for sharing that. To kind of build on what you were saying, I think there's healthy tensions that maybe these two are more codependent on each other than that tension that we typically experience in business. And I think it's still tied to that whole time, cost, and quality paradigm of how AI is influencing that and changing that. I mean, that time, cost, and quality is still the same, right? You're adding efficiency, needing less resources, less time, that sort of thing. Are you maintaining the quality? And the responsibility aspect overlaid on top of that is, I think, more magnified than it might have been, or at least we can see it a little bit more when going through AI-type transformations. So yeah, I think there in some ways it does fit into the traditional triad of how we try to improve as businesses, but giving us a new lens on and a new lease on how it can get affected by magnifying biases and magnifying efficiencies as well.
Thank you. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Yannis. I'm founder of Code for Thought. We are a startup that assess the technical quality of software systems, be it the traditional ones or the AI ones, based on some of the dimensions that you mentioned. I would agree with the previous speakers. What we see is that the sooner you embed those values into the design of your systems, then the better is this balance. So it's not an or question, it's an and. And if you ask me, it's how soon are we going to distill these values and these thoughts in the design of our systems? The sooner we do, that's what we see in our clients. The sooner they start considering quality or responsibility not as an afterthought, but as a prerequisite to build a system or design a system, the better it gets. And the better also, the more is the value that it gives to the business. Thank you.
And I think this is part of the culture as well, right?
Yes.
If your manager tells you have 3 weeks to deliver a certain system, but then actually using the technology for responsible AI takes another 3 weeks, how do you make this culture in your company that you actually can spend the time on making it responsible?
From a practical point of view, you start for the quick wins. Those projects that there is no the time pressure, but you know they will be important in the future, so you start from there. And then you have the spillover effect, because I understand what you say. If there is business from the pressure, there is business, there is pressure. But you pick your battles.
I agree.
We've got time for one, maybe 2 more. Yeah, go ahead.
Hi, I'm Adam. I'm from a company, Prolific. We help businesses who are training models to do it in an ethical and responsible way. One of the things that I hope that the answer to this question is yes. I have a lot of concerns that for businesses it's very hard to do this because efficiency and driving efficiency is much easier to quantify, I feel, than to then to try and then quantify like responsible or ethical AI. So I think when we are all making business decisions, I think it almost is the risk is that we look too hard at the easy to quantify data, and it drives us towards efficiency. And I have observed these decisions been made in the past, and often efficiency becomes a very compelling data point. If you're saving money, if you're able to save workforce, it sort of drives in that direction and probably pulls away from the responsible ethical side. So I hope yes, but I think it's a concern we should all be front of mind.
Right, thank you. Maybe one more. We've got. Yeah, go ahead.
I'm just curious, is there any organization laying out the foundational list of KPIs, which could be used for, let's say, communicating responsible AI maturity? Like, companies are forced to publish their sustainability efforts and goals and targets, similarly to communicate how AI is being adopted responsibility. Is there any framework, KPI library that could be followed?
As far as I know, officially no.
No, but speaking for Accenture, of course, we have a lot of these KPIs thought out, these frameworks defined to help our clients accelerate this process. So yes, so we have, if there's like standardized frameworks.
I mean, it's not legal. It's not enforced yet.
Yeah. But, yeah. We're actually through the time, and we have a hard
Hi,
stop.
Vera from SciDot. The AI Act will require transparency, especially for the more risks there are, the more disclosure is needed to the users of the model, and that means often it's practical to and also the public should know.
Yeah, no, you're absolutely right. But we actually do have a hard stop. We need to stop. I'm sorry, but thank you all for participating.
Thank you.
And hope to see you again soon.